All right, we're gonna talk about anatomy and physiology this session. Anatomy and physiology is a 50-minute test on 3 organ systems. For example, this year I think the 3 were on the digestive system, the respiratory system, and the immune system. And there's usually different sections on the test. For example, histology, which is where you look at tissues and try to identify different cells. Diseases, where you get some symptoms and you try to identify the disease that's related to that symptom. Or they might quiz you on what organ is involved in a particular process. This event only has one cheat sheet, so you have to memorize a lot of information because you can't cram everything in. It's very hard to cram everything into that one cheat sheet. And you also have one partner in the event. Because there's lots of information, there's lots of memorization.
Can the cheat sheet be any size?
It has to be a standard size. It can't be a ridiculously large.
Well, can it be double-sided?
Yeah, it can be double-sided. Any other questions?
Is there a limit on the notes you can take?
I mean, you're limited by the cheat sheet, but you can put as many words as you want on it. It's just you have to be able to read it if you want to use it.
Can you write everything down in tiny print and then use a magnifying glass and look at it?
Yeah, when making the cheat sheet, I used very, very tiny print, but I'm not sure whether or not you're allowed to use magnifying glasses, but I didn't just to be safe. But
Can you type your cheat sheet?
yeah, most people type their cheat sheet. All right. Any other questions? All right.
Is there any tools you use to test the organs and stuff?
I don't believe so.
So you use your bare hands?
We don't actually do anything with all the organs that we'll be seeing is on a piece of paper, which means all the organs are just going to be images, so we're not going to deal with any actual organs. All right, so today we're going to talk about 2 organ systems. We'll briefly go over them. We'll learn about the different parts involved in those organ systems, and we'll finish with a short practice quiz. Because this is a lot of information and I don't know, and since there's going to be a quiz at the end, notes are highly recommended for in order to help you remember stuff. So first, let's talk about the respiratory system. The basic pathway of the respiratory system is from the nose/mouth. It goes to the pharynx, which is in your throat, and then the larynx, which is also in your throat. And then it goes to the trachea, which is this weird thing over here that has a lot of stripes. And then it goes to the bronchi. There's actually multiple bronchi that just branch out, but there's 2 main ones. The ones that branch out are called bronchioles. And then at the end, there's little sacs called alveoli. First, we have the nose/mouth. The nose filters, moistens, and warms air coming through. And it detects odors with chemoreceptors. And vibrissae or guard hairs help filter air, while cilia sweeps particles to the throat for digestion. Mucus helps trap particles, and lysozymes, which are cells that can help kill bacteria, are contained in the mucus. There are capillaries in your nose that help warm the air. And next we have the pharynx. So there are three main parts of the pharynx. First, there's the nasopharynx, which, as the first part suggests, naso. It's a passageway for air from your nose. And then there's the oropharynx, which is underneath the nasopharynx. And it's a passageway for air, food, and drink that comes from your mouth. And then we have the laryngopharynx. The first part, laryngo, refers to the fact that it's right above the larynx. And it's the bottom part of your pharynx. And it's the passageway for air, food, and drink. And it goes into the larynx. The larynx is also known as your voice box because that's where your vocal cords are contained. And it's part of your, and it's also part of your throat. It has a flap of cartilage called an epiglottis, which helps keep food and drink out of your trachea. The glottis is the place your epiglottis protects, and it contains your vocal cords. And your vocal cords are basically flaps of tissue in the larynx. There are false vocal cords, which don't make sound, but they aid in closing the glottis when swallowing. And then there are your true vocal cords, which are the vocal cords that vibrate when air goes through them to produce sound. After the larynx is the trachea. It's also known as your windpipe, and it sort of leads into your lungs. It just helps clean, moisten, and warm air. And it, there's not much to say about that. Oh, one thing that I should have added here is the reason why. Okay, going back here, the reason why it looks so weird like this is because it's actually composed of 9 cartilage rings, and that's why it looks like it has stripes. Next, we have bronchi. So there are the 2 primary bronchi, which are the 2 left and right bronchi. There's the secondary bronchi, which are tubes branching off of the primary bronchi, and there's one for each lobe in the lung. So one thing about lobes in the lungs, lobes are basically different sections of the lungs. I think there's a slide talking about it later. But one cool thing about them is that your left lung actually only has 2 lobes, while your right lung has 3. Can anyone guess why this is?
The heart?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because the lung takes up space. So the left lung has to be shorter to accommodate for the heart. Air then goes into tertiary bronchi, and then it goes to the bronchioles, and then finally the alveoli. The alveoli are small sacs that allow for transfer of oxygen and carbon dioxide from the lungs to the bloodstream. How it does this is that there are small capillaries all around the alveoli, and then because the wall between the alveoli and the capillaries are so thin, gases can just pass through them with diffusion. So what diffusion is that if there's a high concentration of something, it will want to go to a low concentration of something. So since there's a high concentration of oxygen in the lungs, it will want to go to the more to the less oxygenated area of the blood. Alveoli also contain cells that secrete surfactant. Surfactant is a compound that helps lower the surface tension, and this is really important for alveoli because it helps prevent alveolar collapse whenever you exhale.
What is that?
What?
Alveolar collapse.
It's when your alveoli just sort of collapse. So.
Can it happen naturally to you with no warning? And also, what does happen when it happens? Are there any medical problems? I assume breathing problems.
yeah, there would definitely be a lot of breathing problems if you didn't have any surfactant and your alveoli decided to collapse. And I'm guessing it would be pretty permanent too, so that'd be bad. The lungs also need to be protected from pathogens. So one thing alveoli have are leukocytes that help protect the alveoli. Leukocytes are sort of like white blood cells, and they just help get rid of the pathogens. All right. Not okay. Now moving on to the lungs overall. So the lobes are, as I said, they're different portions of the lungs, and each lobe is separated by connective tissue and it has its own arteries and veins. So they're pretty compartmentalized. Serous membranes cover the lungs, and they help release pleural fluid, which helps reduce friction when contracting and expanding. Finally, we have the diaphragm. It's a dome-shaped muscle beneath the lungs. Whenever the diaphragm contracts, the thoracic cavity where your lungs are stored it also expands, so it lets the lungs expand. So that's how you breathe. It contracts and relaxes to help control your lungs. There are many different respiratory diseases. One of them is hypoxia, which is the deficiency or inability to use oxygen, and many different diseases can lead to hypoxia. There are also the chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, which are a group of diseases that cause long-term obstruction of airflow, leading to a great reduction in pulmonary ventilation, which is just basically breathing. Something that's probably really well known is asthma. Asthma happens when allergens trigger the release of histamine and other chemicals, which can actually inflame the lungs, which cause the bronchioles to constrict, which leads to reduced airflow. There's also
Can you
what?
die to asthma?
Huh? Yeah. Well, I mean, if your asthma is really bad, yeah, you can die to asthma.
Asthma attacks.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Next we have pneumonia, which is a lower respiratory infection that causes fluid buildup, which also sort of is bad for your breathing. And then there's also tuberculosis, which is a bacterial infection, which reduces lung compliance.
I'm pretty sure that's permanent too.
Which one?
The bottom one.
Tuberculosis?
Yeah.
Chopin had it.
Yeah. A lot of people in the past died of tuberculosis because it was considered terminal at that time. All right. Before we move on to the digestive system, does anyone have any questions? No? Let's move on. All right. The digestive system. Oh, Junie has a question. Yeah.
Actually, that's my mom's name, but I have a question. I think I heard something about tuberculosis. Does it make people cough blood or something?
Uh, I'm not really sure about the exact symptoms other than reduced lung compliance, but yeah, maybe it makes people cough blood. I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry.
Any other questions?
Are we gonna learn about the heart?
No. Today we're not going to learn about the heart. Sorry.
Pretty sure that's the recirculatory.
Yeah, it's part of the circulatory system, which is sort of related to the respiratory system. They work together. All right, the digestive system. There are two main parts of the digestive system. There's the alimentary canal, which is sort of this very long tube that goes throughout your body. And then there's the accessory organs, which are connected to the alimentary canal and just sort of help it do its thing. So, so let's start at the beginning of the alimentary canal. So first there's the mouth slash salivary glands. The salivary glands sort of just help the mouth break down food by secreting enzymes. One example of this is amylase. Amylase is an enzyme that helps break down carbohydrates, and it's found in saliva. Teeth also help to digest food by grinding it up, and this is called mechanical digestion. And then at the end of all the, and then at the end the food is turned into a ball called the bolus. Some other parts that help aid in the digestive system in the mouth is your lips, which help determine the temperature and texture of food, and the tongue, which helps detect taste, and it also helps move food.
Sometimes when something is like hot and we try to taste it, we usually use our tongue.
Yeah, but your lips can also help detect heat.
Okay.
The next we have the esophagus, which is the tube between the throat and the stomach. So it's sort of like the other tube that connects to the larynx, sort of. It's in the esophagus, food is moved through it by peristalsis. And peristalsis is the wave-like movement of the contraction and relaxation of muscles in the esophagus. The esophagus has a lot of is very muscular, and it uses this to help move food. There's also a sort of valve in the esophagus called a sphincter that helps control the movement of food. And one of the other functions that has, other than just being a pathway from the mouth to the stomach, is that it helps provide mucus that helps lubricate the bolus so it could move smoother. Next, we have the stomach. The stomach is where a lot of the digestion takes place. So first, enzymes are secreted by gastric glands to turn food into liquid, and gastric glands actually are made up of a lot of cells that have different functions. So there are parietal cells, which make hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor is something that binds to vitamin B12, so it can be digested by the small intestine. There's also chief cells, which help produce and secrete pepsinogen, which is the precursor to pepsin. Pepsin is an enzyme which helps digest proteins. There's also the mucus secreting cells, which secrete mucus that helps protect the stomach from hydrochloric acid.
Is there like a disability that prevents you from like producing mucus, or is it just like never stops?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure there can be a disability where your stomach stops producing mucus, but it would probably
Be rare.
Yeah, I don't know, because like
It'll definitely kill you from the inside out.
well, like yeah, like if it's like permanent, then it'd probably kill you, but if it's like only temporary, then you might be fine.
Why do we only have one stomach, but other animals have two stomachs or stomach chambers?
It's because, so take for example cows. The grass that they eat is very hard to digest, so they need to use more stomachs to this.
Right. They they need to do the process multiple times. And some animals, they eat their own poop to get more nutrients.
Yeah. We may not have more than one stomach, but chemical digestion doesn't stop in the stomach. In fact, a lot of it happens in the small intestine. So so I guess the small intestine is also sort of like the stomach. I'm not sure if that helps. Yeah, and as they said, cows might need more digestion than humans.
Okay.
Yeah. So the stomach also helps absorb some things. It helps absorb water, ethanol, certain drugs, and certain ions. And after all the digestion, the bolus turns into something called chyme, and it's sent to the small intestine. The small intestine is sort of where a lot of the action happens. It's where the most enzymatic digestion occurs. It's where the most absorption occurs. And accessory organs give it the different enzymes that it uses to secrete and to secrete enzymes. Oh,
I heard that the stomach was very small. Is that true?
it's pretty small compared to the small intestine, I think. So the accessory organs, I already said that. And then the first part of the small intestine is called the duodenum, and it secretes bile and digestive juices, and it absorbs vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients. Jejunum is the second part, and it helps absorb water, sugars, amino acids, and fatty acids. And the last part, the ileum, it absorbs everything else, and it including the vitamin B12, remember the intrinsic factor from earlier, and bile acids.
What are bile acids?
I think the I'm not sure about this, but I know the liver creates bile, so it might be something related to that, or it just might be something found in the food. I'm not actually too sure about that. So yeah, talking about bile, hepatocytes in the liver produce bile, and bile helps digest fats by breaking it down. And extra bile produced by the liver is stored in the gallbladder. There's also another accessory organ to the small intestine is the pancreas, which helps produce enzymes, and it secretes it into the duodenum. It also produces hydrogen carbonate, which helps to make chyme less acidic. And this is important because there's a lot of enzymes in chyme. So because of this pH change, enzymes such as pepsin will be deactivated, since pepsin only works at like, I think it was a pH at 3.5. My bio teacher had a really weird quiz about that. And other enzymes might work better at higher pHs.
Does the pancreas also produce insulin?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's the cause of diabetes.
Well, I guess if your pancreas doesn't work properly, you get diabetes.
Diabetes is caused by when your pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin, and then you got your sugar, your blood rate goes up.
What is the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes?
I don't know.
I think one is like acquired and one is genetic.
One is like, no, I think 2 is where you just have too much sugar in your thing starts not
Two
working.
is acquired, one is genetic.
I'm pretty sure one of the two doesn't last for. I'm pretty sure one of the two has to do with sugar, and then maybe you could get out of it.
It's
I don't
number 2.
You can't get out of your pancreas is permanently dead.
All right, let's move on. And then finally, at the end, there's the large intestine. First there's the appendix, which is at the entrance of the large intestine. It's pretty small. And one thing about it is that it actually has no real function. So scientists think that it's just a vestigial structure, which is something maybe our genetic ancestors had, but it's something that we got through evolution. It's something that our ancestors had, but we no longer need. So it's just sort of there.
It might have use. Or else we wouldn't have it, right?
Scientists just
lives there at times.
Scientists just haven't found out a use for it yet, but it probably is a genetic leftover from previous
Generations.
previous human.
I've heard a lot that people got their appendix removed. They
It
have
gets inflamed.
Yeah, if your appendix gets inflamed, and since you don't really need your appendix, you can just remove it.
Scientists do find a vital need for the appendix, then that's gonna stop pretty soon.
I know somebody who had like an appendix disease or something, so they had to get it removed.
I know someone who had a appendix removal.
Me too. The
How does your
person
appendix
controlling
get
Bright
inflamed?
Future for account has gotten their appendix removed, but they feel okay for now.
L1, do you have a question?
If appendix is useless, then why do humans have it?
So basically, one of our ancestors used it, but nowadays we don't actually need it.
Our science.
It's just something that's still there because of.
How does the
I
appendix?
think there's a
get
hidden use
inflamed,
for
though?
it, but I think scientists will figure that out in like few decades.
Scientists
How does
haven't
the appendix get
Scientists-
inflamed?
Scientists haven't figured any use for the appendix yet, but they might find out one in the future.
I'm just asking, if you remove your gallbladder, can you still survive? For a little while.
Pretty sure yes.
The gallbladder is basically a place to carry the livers, some of the stuff from the liver.
You can.
The gallbladder is used to store extra bile.
Yeah.
Right.
Wait, so we used to need the appendix, but now we don't anymore?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it does nothing.
Appendix-
Or either we still need it.
Yeah, but then the people who don't have an appendix, oh wow,
Okay, what if it has a use, but it's not exactly vital to health?
yeah, that could be true.
Well, that's probably its current state right now, as people can live without the appendix, and as it gets inflamed and some people had it removed, like the person controlling Bright Future for life.
All right, let's talk about the colon. The colon is the second part of the large intestine, and it helps absorb water. Since what we're left with after the small intestine is a lot of water, and it's also where bacterial fermentation takes place. It's also where feces is formed. And then we have the rectum, which helps collect undigested waste, and finally the anus, which helps expel the undigested waste. And it uses muscles to control that. And then finally we have digestive diseases. We have stomach flu, which is a viral infection that causes diarrhea, cramps, nausea, vomiting, and fever. We have lactose intolerance, where the lack of the enzyme lactase causes an inability to digest the sugar lactose. Does anyone know why lactose intolerant people can still eat yogurt?
Because
Maybe
There isn't any lactose in yogurt.
maybe
Because
it's
bacteria
because
destroy
the
Oh,
milk,
because it's plant-based
the
yogurt.
milk that is used in yogurt. Well, maybe it's they processed it so it's a bit different
Just eat
than
plant-based.
regular milk.
Just eat plant-based yogurt.
Yeah, the people, so yogurt is sort of processed, but it's not processed by humans. It's processed by I think it's processed by bacteria. Bacteria sort of ferments milk, and
microbes.
no, yeah, bacteria sort of ferments lactase, and it sort of breaks it down. So what you're left with is something that doesn't contain lactase. So people who are lactose intolerant can still can eat it since it's already sort of digested for them.
What's the difference between lactose and lactase?
Okay, lactase is the enzyme that helps digest lactose. Lactose is a sugar.
I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that cats are lactose intolerant. Or
That's
more-
why you should never feed milk to a cat.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that.
Sure.
All right. Next we have hepatitis, which is inflammation of the liver, which is caused by 3 different viruses.
Is it permanent?
I'm not sure.
There was
I don't think so.
maybe you can get your liver removed and it will part of the liver removed and the liver will regrow.
Yeah.
I doubt that. Actually, that might work. Might.
Because people have done it before and it succeeded to
Yeah.
avoid.
I think the liver might like grow back. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, you can just remove part of the liver.
I believe in Greek mythology, there's this person that was tied to the mountain, and then there's an eagle that came every day and ate his liver, and every night he regrew his liver or something.
That makes
was
sense
immortal.
because people can grow their liver, but probably not that fast.
Okay, yeah, that's that's sort of violent. Finally, we have Crohn's disease, which is inflammation in part of the digestive tract. And that's it for the digestive system. Now on to the quiz. You can send me the answers using chat. Please wait, no, actually is chat disabled?
No, you can still
Yeah.
send it to like host.
Yeah, but not the whole group.
Okay, yeah, so you can direct message me in the chat.
Does number 1 mean what is the pathway of air from the mouth to the bloodstream called? Is it that?
Basically what I meant by number 1 is like name all of the name all of the parts of the pathway from air from the mouth to the bloodstream. So it's like mouth, and then like the thing that comes after mouth, and then the thing that comes after
Okay.
that, and so on. And then you should end at the alveoli and stuff. The bottom. All right, I think enough people got part 1 correct. Oh, still a few left. All right, let me quickly move on to the next one. I don't think you'll be able to answer it all with the time we have. So it's okay if you don't get all of them. I'm pretty sure most people got the correct answers. So I think we can end class here.
Bye. Thank you.
I think.